Friday the 13th. Wow, isn't that interesting? But anyway, I'd like to welcome Christian Hollmann. Now, he is a Brooklyn-based artist. He will be producing his first NFT art within the next few months. His art involves many profound social commentary and themes, especially as to the instability and destructiveness of what we have as the current status quo global financial system and geopolitics in other parts of the world. And his art focuses on, I think, the promise, and you can even say maybe even some of the drawbacks of blockchain technology. So, Christian, I warmly welcome you to our show, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, cool. Thanks so much for the really warm introduction. I don't know, that was actually more than I feel like what I'm actually doing. That was a really good intro.
Oh. I feel that's what I took away from it anyway.
That was solid. No, you always have to definitely sell it. I think at the start, I'm just kind of been really excited about Bitcoin because if you saw the film, The Big Short, they kind of, I feel like the government kind of took away some of the dignity from people, and I feel like there was no alternative for what they were doing. And then I think with Bitcoin, I feel like you had a little bit of a way just to preserve a little bit of your dignity when looking at the government. And so that was really exciting. And I think so far my art has kind of been focused on just kind of taking away the US dollar as the unit of account they call it, kind of just like getting it into people's minds that, you know what, the US dollar isn't always the frame of reference for everything. Because right now it is. I feel like still the frame of reference for everything. You know, everybody's like, oh, real estate's going up. Oh, housing's going up. Oh, crypto's going up. But in reality, the common denominator is the dollar, and maybe the dollar is just going down. And it's that kind of like theory of relativity frame of reference thing that everybody's swimming in the world of the US dollar and measuring everything by the US dollar. And so I think kind of the art at the beginning has been kind of just trying to get people out of that state of mind or point out that there is an alternative.
Yeah.
And I think in the future, obviously, I'd like to do more positive things, focusing on more of the beneficial aspects of Bitcoin or more of the interesting things. But right now, it's just kind of, I think at the beginning, been more of a criticism of the US dollar and kind of just an idea that, you know, there's a different, there is an alternative in some ways, just any alternative. But I guess Bitcoin, because that's pretty exciting.
Right. Yeah. And I asked this of everybody, but how did you get into blockchain? How many years ago? What was the impetus? What was the inspiration to really, go into a deep dive into blockchain and Bitcoin? Because whether it's myself or anybody I talk to, everybody seems to have a story as far as how they got into cryptocurrency, how they got into blockchain, how they got into Bitcoin. So especially you being an artist, and you know some of the things we will touch on later would be like NFT art. How did you get into the subject or the passion of Bitcoin and blockchain?
Yeah, I think, you know what, I think it starts out like when you get into guitar, and I did get into guitar when I was a teenager. I think.
Oh, I have one right here.
Nice. You first get in it to maybe get a girl or something. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, this is definitely going to work. I got this, and I got into Bitcoin. I think I'm assuming with everybody else, just because you heard about it from somebody else, and like, oh, we're going to make $1 million out of this, and you're like, okay, great. And I guess I kind of maybe missed my opportunity a little bit sometimes, even before the 2017 or 18 bull run, the bigger one.
Right.
Somebody had been talking about it before, and I was going to buy some, but then it was like a wire transfer to some unknown location somewhere, and I was just like, what is this? Get me out. And it wasn't until later on when you could actually go onto Coinbase at the beginning of the bull run that I got some. And so at first it was just a financial institution investment kind of thing where I was really excited about it. And then, you know, it kind of like with the guitar, first you're getting into just to meet a girl or whatever, but then, you know, people are very complex, and, you know, they have a lot of different motivations going on. So then all of a sudden you get into it and you have a lot of different reasons for getting into it. You start to love music, you start to love creating art, whatever it is. And so with Bitcoin too, you know, then you start listening to Andreas Antonopoulos. He's really kind of like the ringleader in some ways. And there's other people too, like Yuval Noah Harari, the guy that wrote *Sapiens*. He had mentioned Bitcoin a couple times too, and I was also reading him at the time too, a little bit too. And just all these ideas about just being kind of at the at the edge of what's being created out there as far as the culture, society. I know that I find that stuff really interesting and kind of be at the wave, whatever. And I feel like Bitcoin's kind of, you're riding a little bit of a wave. You're a little bit doing what maybe is in the future, maybe, hopefully, right? You never know. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I guess part of it was that I was just really, you never know, like sometimes the best ideas don't win out. And so I kind of felt like, what could I possibly do to help promote this? Obviously, talking to your friends isn't going to work because, I mean, you can kind of bring it up, but after a while, they're like, "Yo, come on! Like, what are you really selling us here?" And
Right.
and so I eventually got into kind of making art, and it was actually nice to me because I always have been kind of doing artsy stuff, but eventually you feel like, I don't know. It's like either like you're going to just make art every day and be an artist, or you have something to say about it. And it's nice to have something to say. I tried writing, but I didn't really feel like I had much to say. I was a lot younger. And then tried music too, and I got the music down part, but I never had the lyrics part of it down because I felt like I had nothing to say necessarily. I mean, nothing specific to get out there. But I feel with the Bitcoin right now, I feel like I don't know, I'm saying something worthwhile, and now I'm at the part now, once I have all the traction going, I just enjoy making stuff, trying to do it every day and just trying to be myself, I guess, in a way too, and try to make something interesting. I don't know.
Awesome.
I got a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Hey, bud.
Please, Randy.
After I looked at your website and I saw the NFTs that you have for sale, I was particularly impressed with the collage of multiple fiat currencies.
Cool.
And
there's one, sorry to interrupt, there's one at the very beginning, the first one I did that has like, I think 7 different fiat currencies, or then there's, that one too, which has the globe, exactly, you're right.
Yes, those are the ones that's the thing about it, I couldn't tell. I could guess about 3 or 4 of the fiat currencies.
Sure.
And I was curious about that.
Yeah, sure. So are we talking about the one that says buy Bitcoin, or this one right over here? This is the other one that I thought you might have been talking about. This one has 7 of them. And then there's the one that says buy Bitcoin or whatever that has a bunch of different ones.
Right.
My question is kind of basic. As you are an artist who communicates in the visual spectrum for humans, have you ever seen a Bitcoin transaction?
Oh yeah, actually yes. A Bitcoin transaction. Yes, I play poker here in the city, and there are several people. Not everybody, but there are a couple. I'd say 5%, maybe 10% now. It's going up. Players who will transact in cryptocurrencies, usually Bitcoin, almost always Bitcoin. And then I sold 3 art pieces at the Miami convention.
Okay.
And I sold them all in Bitcoin, which is nice. And I think that's always been kind of the goal because it just ties into the experience. So that was nice. So yeah.
And see, if that answers my question specifically, you've seen a Bitcoin transaction. You've seen it live in person with your own eyes.
I mean, I've seen the amount reduce on my wallet or key or whatever entry point you want to call it, and
okay.
There's so I mean, yeah, I guess if you're saying, do I actually see what's going on behind the scenes? Have I gone to Blockstream, or do I understand what's going on? Not really, but yes, I've transacted in Bitcoin, sure.
Okay, so you've seen a real live transaction. I'm talking about, see, that's the trouble with the English language. It's confusing sometimes, and exact meanings are not there. And that's why a visual representation is always the best. What I was talking about was a website like Fiat Leak, where they show global real-time Bitcoin transactions. And they show the addresses and the amounts that are transferred from one entity to the next. Have you ever seen any or heard of anything like fiatleak.com?
I haven't heard of Fiat Leak. I know there's what's that, Block Navigator or
Block Navigator, yes.
Right, right. And sometimes I think for Ethereum there's one too. So if you have a transaction that's lost or something, you can kind of see that at least it's been initiated or something, or it's a pending, or it's waiting confirmation. So yeah, I've gone on to those Block Navigator, I believe. I've gone on there a couple of times just to make sure, because sometimes you take something off an exchange or something and you're not sure if it's been picked up at all or what's been going on. You're a little bit confused, and so then you go on to the
You're wondering whether or not a miner has decided to resolve your transaction.
Exactly, right, exactly. Or whether or not it started out, because like sometimes there could be a problem maybe on the exchange part. So you don't know if the holdup is on the part of the exchange or if the holdup is on part of the actual blockchain. And so that's, I believe, the only reason I've really gone on to Block Navigator is to see whether or not there was a holdup on the exchange part, like a second party, or whether or not I was actually transacting on the blockchain.
Don't take this as a criticism of your art, but take it as an idea, a screen capture of the live transaction as an artwork.
You know what? Actually, that is a good. I appreciate. For starters, I enjoy all the criticism. Please say whatever you want to. Secondly, I had one idea that whatever, it's still out there, but I think the very first cuneiform, I believe, from that Babylonian area, they have some of these tablets or something of the first writings, and the first writings that were recovered, ledgers, kind of like what Bitcoin is too, in a way, keeping track of who owed what to who. And I was thinking of creating something that was in that kind of shape and form, and then electronically was just a live view of Bitcoin transactions going on from like a Block Navigator or something. Kind of thing.
I sent that image to Adam already.
Nice.
He's probably thrown it away.
You'd be surprised. Adam's holding on to that, and he's waiting for you to forget about it, and then he's going to use it for his own gain. Don't trust anybody.
Yes, that reminds me, what you're saying, Randy, is we interviewed Kane Mayfield. He's a NFT artist, and what he did for to create a sound music in the background, like as a beat, they took the sound of the Bitcoin blockchain that it makes when you like actually hook it up, and then they loop that to make the beat of the actual music. So it's very similar to what you're talking about in terms of visual art and listening art in terms of music. But yeah, it's very interesting what a lot of people are doing with the actual physical, and even though it's not a physical thing, turning it into physical art and turning it into music that you can hear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There is not a physical thing, and I think it is hard to do. I think part of the foundation of a lot of what I was doing as far as the art goes, or just the presentation goes, was, so you can't see it on this one, the Buy Bitcoin one, but on the others, it's always about putting them in a series of blocks. And in my mind, just the representation was that, you have like a mathematical square, and it's very clean and precise, and that was going to be the blockchain because it's mathematically very concrete, kind of like nothing in the real world is going to be as concrete or as simple. But mathematically on the internet, you can kind of create systems that are very simple and transparent and elegant. And then I was just comparing it to the fiat currencies that are pretty messy. So I think there's the abstract one, has a bunch of whatever paint going around. That was kind of just comparing the blocks of the blockchain to the, just pairing as a compare and contrast kind of idea. So to the more fluid idea of the fiat currencies. And then I think there's another one that I just did with the Bolivar, the Venezuelan, just comparing, putting them on there, and then putting them in the blocks, kind of thing too.
I think that's one of the hesitancies for people adopting Bitcoin, blockchain, different types of cryptocurrencies. there is no physical connection with the theoretical concept of a token to an actual physical thing.
Sure.
Unless you buy something with it or successfully buy something with it, there's no physical something that you can hold in your hand.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people felt the same way. I mean, Andreas Andopoulos talks about this. I'm sure people felt the same way when they got their first credit card, their first checks or whatever. They're like, what is this? Like, I'd rather have US dollar.
Cash.
Or cash, exactly. And before cash, it was I'd rather have gold. So anytime there's like a new idea coming up, I think it's a little bit difficult. But I think, once this just takes time. I think it takes time and confidence. Once people are transacting in it after a while, like my friends, let's say at the poker table are hanging around and they see me and someone else settle a transaction through Bitcoin, they're like, oh, that was kind of interesting. And once that goes on for a longer period of time, then they're going to be like, oh, maybe that's something I can do too. So they don't have to think even too much about it. They just, sometimes I think for mass adoption, I think it just has to be a system that just works better than whatever people are doing, or maybe just works as well, and then maybe people are going to come over. So, I think it would be. I mean, obviously, if you could hold in your hands like a physical asset, I think that would be an easier sell. But I think over time, I think people just get comfortable with the idea. People are adaptable; they believe in all sorts of crazy things, So why not Bitcoin? They can believe in that too if they see enough other people using it.
Some people are adaptable. Some people stick with the tried and true until death.
Yeah, sure. Yes. And I think it is usually the older gentlemen, actually, males, I believe that hold on to the older traditions more stubbornly than the younger ones. And so, yeah, I think that you and I are in this space is an excellent sign that, I'm saying people are very adaptable. Yeah.
My father is not quite as adaptable as you two. He's more stuck in his ways in terms of using the U.S. dollar and saving in that, and it's just very foreign to him. He just dawned on him. I've been saving Bitcoin with my mother and helping them with their retirement and everything. He doesn't really know too much about it, but it dawned on him that he doesn't have to buy a full Bitcoin. He's like, oh, I don't know how all these other people are affording Bitcoin. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can buy however much you want. He's like, oh, he's like, I thought you had to buy a full one. I'm like, Dad, I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. I talk about it all the time, and you're just realizing now that you can buy a portion of a Bitcoin. I'm like, whatever. Like, he just doesn't, it's just not in his realm of comprehension, and it's fine for some people. Some people don't use email. Some people still use the post office, but all the employees at the post office don't send letters to communicate. They use email to communicate because it's just more efficient. So, there's going to always be people that use the analog dollar, and that's what they feel comfortable with, but there's going to be a better way to transact, and that's going to be using the Bitcoin network. Not necessarily the Bitcoin currency, but using the Bitcoin network to use multiple currencies over of your choice. So it's going to be a interesting world, and with NFT art, I find it becoming very interesting in terms of like blending real world art and digital art into one. It's kind of adding another layer or dimension to physical art. Adding the certificate of authenticity, and maybe you could add augmented reality when you look at the physical art with visual art. So it's very interesting on where all this is going, because you think of the metaverses people are going to be stepping into, younger millennials and Generation Z are starting to live in these virtual worlds, and you're creating money for those worlds, and you're creating art and things to experience in those worlds. And 10 years, 20 years from now, we're going to be in a completely different place when it comes to, people landing on Mars and us communicating with them in virtual reality. And it's fun to think of what's going to happen.
I'm laughing a little bit because we're just talking about how the older generations are going to be usually the last to adopt newer just cultures or technologies or ideas. And I know that the metaverse right now is something where I'm like, okay, that sounds really cool, but I just feel like, man, that's like still like far away in the future, too far for me to really to think about. Maybe if we put an infinite time or something, maybe 20 years, I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to be there. But I don't know, Randy, how do you feel about the metaverse? Are you with me on this one, or are you sold on it? You're in on it. We're all going to be wearing virtual goggles in 20 years and just going from one virtual world to another, and that's how we're going to be transacting or talking to one another or socializing.
I'm biased. I have Google Glass.
Oh,
I
nice.
got one in 2012.
Oh man, good job.
And I have
all right, Randy.
Google Cardboard, and I also have Vuzix heads-up display. So, what is it? 9 years ago, I was in the metaverse in virtual reality, and I understand and have used a thing called high fidelity.
Okay.
It's a virtual world for meeting. You have an avatar in a 3D virtual world accessed by a heads-up display of some sort on the internet. And that's been around 6 or 7 years. Most people don't know anything about it, though.
Yeah.
And speaking to your question, am I on with the metaverse or am I down with the metaverse?
You already answered.
Do I accept it? One thing I discovered when wearing my Google Glass into a restaurant or everything, most people, 99% of the people, yeah, go ahead and record me. Go ahead and take a picture of me. It impressed the girls. And I have a picture and a video recorded of one particular girl who was very impressed with it. And I'll send it to you. The other thing is when I was out walking around with the Google Glass, I encountered a workman who recognized it right off the bat and said, "Do not take my picture, do not record me," specifically within 5 or 10 seconds of seeing me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a weird battle to pick because I think you were just one person wearing Google Glasses, but if more and more people are doing it, it's going to be a hard battle to fight to ask not to be recorded. I don't know how you have to pick and choose your fights. I feel like a lot of times you have to do something that you can actually win.
That's what killed Google Glass.
Oh.
To make it not wide adopted, there were too many news reports of people being forbidden to enter restaurants and people being confronted out on the street with Google Glass.
Interesting.
Get that 4-letter deleted word out of here. Don't record me. And they were violently confronting people with Google Glass wearing. And it slowly died and you didn't hear anything more about it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never knew that. And I was curious what happened with Google Glass. That makes a lot more sense because it was a big deal at the time. I remember when it first came out, people were talking about it.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of hype about it. And it was select few who got it, like initially like 12, 14,000. And then they opened it up. Yeah. And then after about a year, it didn't so much fade away as it dropped to nothing. You didn't hear anything about it, no news stories, no people. Google didn't announce any upgrades, any continuation of it. Oh, you can still get it, but it just dropped off to nothing.
Nice. I mean, not nice, but I'm saying nice to you getting so involved in what's cutting edge or what's on the edge of what people are doing. I think that's excellent.
And see, that's like the NFTs. What was it? In 2017, fidget spinner. It was the big deal, the must-have gadget in the summer of 2017, but it fizzled out. And I'm wondering, NFTs, is it the fidget spinner of 2021?
That is a Excellent question. I don't know. I think when I first heard about the NFTs, at first I was just like, this is ridiculous because you're betting on. I didn't appreciate the idea of a metaverse at the time. I didn't appreciate the idea that digital assets could be viewed, or I don't know what it is, honored between different blockchains. And so I was like, oh, people are betting on. Not only are they betting on a particular NFT, but also betting on a particular blockchain. And at Ethereum, who knows if Ethereum 2.0 will actually work out? They've been talking about it for 3 years. Who knows if maybe it's Cardano that fills up that niche? Maybe it's Algo, whatever. Who knows? Neo. There's a ton of different ones competing for it. So how can people bet on a particular NFT on a particular blockchain when there just seems so many more variables that where it might not work out? But then I realized that you can go cross-chain and that you can go from one virtual world to another virtual world, from one blockchain to another blockchain. So these NFTs can be honored from different blockchains, and so that was one step in me appreciating or accepting NFTs. I think NFTs, fidget spinners, I think we all knew were a fad at the time, and
no, not really. Kids had to have them. But saying to a teenager, it's a fad,
yeah,
I don't think they knew what I was talking about.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. Yeah, well, I mean, I had garbage pail kids as a kid, and they came and went, and they're back now. So who knows?
I do personally. I do see NFTs going beyond the art world and just representing art. Though I do see it as a way for ticketing, a way for tokenizing, maybe land deeds, property, things that that you would want to have a certification of authenticity for, like a Beanie Baby or something. Let's say you have a Beanie Baby that's worth $5,000 and you want to tokenize that. You could create a digital NFT token for that as a collectible. So it goes beyond art and collectibles in terms of like ownership of certain items or digital worlds. I just look at it as like a token of ownership, and that can go beyond art. It can go into music. It can go into, that's what makes it so unique for me and so interesting, is because there's so many possibilities with NFT. Just as many possibilities as there are of unique things in the world is the possibilities that you can do with an NFT, because you can literally tokenize anything you want. Now, is it going to be valuable to somebody else? Maybe not, but it could be. And you have the ability to do that. And that's what makes it interesting to me, is because there's going to be so many possibilities of what you can do in terms of reward points, social coins, all different types of things that not necessarily going to be fungible, but can be non-fungible, that are going to be able to be traded with possibly fungible tokens, like a digital barter of some sort, having pooled liquidity in some way. So I do think that that's going to be like the bleeding edge of where we're going to start going in terms of, transferring value and whatnot.
Isn't that so?
I got a question for Christian.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The other two guys are not old enough to appreciate this, and they probably will answer no to this.
These young bloods.
When I was growing up, it was called young squirrels.
Young squirrels.
Are you old enough to have gone to Woodstock?
No, I'm not. I'm 40. I'm 46. So, but I feel old at heart. Old at heart. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not quite old enough. I'm old enough to have gone.
Nice.
But growing up in Texas, I did not go.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it was 300,000, 400,000 people, but 5 million claimed to have gone. So if you have a Woodstock ticket, that could be a NFT.
Sure.
Yeah. Of course.
Sure. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. My father did. My father went. Was his 16th birthday during Woodstock, August 17th. It's actually coming up right now. It's 16, 17, 18 August, and it's going to be, I think, 51st or 50. Yeah, no, 52nd, 52 years ago.
52nd anniversary of Woodstock, 1969, summer of '69.
Okay.
And guitar player, I don't know if Hendrix was featured, but I know he played.
Oh yeah, he played the Star Spangled Banner to start it.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but I just, in my mind, I imagine like him, a video recording of him playing the Star Spangled Banner released by his estate would be worth like $1 zillion, I guess. I don't know, compared to some of the other things that people are bidding on. But I don't know how it works, but I don't know who's bringing that value to NFTs and who's doing that. But from my point of view, if something else is selling for that much, then Jimi Hendrix doing the Star Spangled Banner has got to be worth $1 zillion, right?
Oh yeah.
And we think of music and stuff, and me and Adam and Randy are working on like culinary art. Culinary, even though it's eaten and it doesn't last very long, culinary art is also an art as well. And think of how much Julia Child's roasted chicken recipe would go for. You know what I mean? As an NFT, or Salt Bae's infamous salt sprinkle, the original one. So you can really NFT almost anything, from an experience to something in the future, for something in the past, for a collectible. So it's just so mind-boggling to me, the possibilities that you're going to see, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think for me it's like a really weird gambling, more risky or volatile space or so, because I feel like the people who are determining the value are like at least the large amounts that we hear about are like a smaller group of really wealthy individuals, and
they're doing it for tax purposes, really. Is
that really it? That's what I hear a lot about. But I also feel there's some of it. There's like a romantic part of me that believes that they're also doing it to kind of create like awareness or a status for themselves in a way too. Like, oh, here we are, and like this is our crypto space, and a lot of you guys are ignoring us. But look at this! I can spend $60 million on this. Yeah. And if you're an outsider or something looking in, you're your dad or my parents or something, they heard, $60 million for this NFT. It's like a foreign language to them. They don't know. It'd be somebody, I think I was talking with Adam about this earlier. It'd be like somebody from the outside hearing people talk about Christianity is an easy example. If you're not a Christian and then you hear some people talking about a virgin birth or somebody walking on water or water to wine, it's like a foreign language to them. They're not going to be able to understand that. And so I feel like in some ways, like this whole idea of spending this kind of money on NFTs, it could be for tax purposes. I don't really understand that whole part yet exactly, but in a way it's also creating a currency that is a language for like a small social class of wealthy individuals. And I think that's why I'm not sure if they just spend it on everything. I don't know, like they've kind of determined that like, what are the original series with the CryptoPunks?
Yeah. One just went for $130 million.
Yeah.
$30 million for like a few pixels on a screen.
I can say this without reservation right now. I don't think, even if I had $130 million, I would spend it on an NFT. I don't think I would.
Yeah. If that NFT represented an island, I would spend that much money on it. You know what I mean? Because the NFT could be a land deed to an island. You know what I mean? So it's not. We got to think of it outside of just being art or a collectible or something like that, because it can just be a token that represents any type of certification, lease, deed, anything like that.
Listen, I hear what you're saying, but me parting with $130 million bucks.
Not for that. Not for a CryptoPunk. No.
Well, maybe when I get $130 million, call and ask me again about buying an island. But until then, I'm not doing it.
I mean, no, we don't have that kind of money, but on a different frame of reference, like spending $1,000 on a bottle of champagne with a sparkler on it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not doing that. I don't care, whatever. That's more realistic. That's something I could do. That's the thing I'm not going to do. But there are plenty of people that do that every day at a club because they just want to be like, hey, look at us. We're spending $1,000 for a $100 bottle of champagne or $50 bottle of champagne or whatever.
I will admit there's a lot of stupid things I've done just to impress a girl.
Exactly. Right. And so somebody's spending $130 million just to impress a lot of people. I mean, I'm impressed.
It's not about the product. Sometimes it's about the experience that comes along with it. You know what I mean? And that's what you're really selling is that, is that seat that you're sitting in the club really worth $5,000? No, it's not. It's about the experience that you're getting while sitting in that seat. And that's what a lot of people don't realize when you go out to a fancy restaurant and you have a great view and you're spending, $100 a plate. You're not really spending $100 because the food costs that much. You're spending that for the overhead, the view, and all the experience.
Ambience, the menu,
exactly,
the uniqueness of the wine selection, or the exceptional service, or you trying to leave a big tip because the waitress. Let me put it the way Woody Allen put it about Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. Not only did she have a body that wouldn't quit, she had a body that wouldn't take a 5-minute coffee break.
Yeah, and not only are you spending the money for the experience, but you're also spending it just to let other people know you're spending it too. You want other people to recognize that, listen, I can spend whatever it is, this amount of money for whatever we're doing over here, and there's a kind of status that goes along with that too.
Yeah.
So
you were at the conference, and Adam was at the Bitcoin conference, and I mean, look at all the people that the high net worth individuals that were walking around that art gallery that day, and that one Bitcoin piece that Michael Saylor wound up getting. There's only a few. Remember that big Bitcoin metal piece? I think it was like $3 million or something they wanted for it. And Michael Saylor wound up buying one, and now he has that as his background whenever he does like an interview or anything like that. And it's all about showing that the money, and this is what we can do with the money and the status and the it represents more than just what it is. It also represents, because that CryptoPunk obviously is not worth $130 million. It's somebody's, doing the status, pulling the status card and going, hey, look at me over here. I can afford $130 million JPEG, and not even like wink about it.
And that's why I said it's a lot more volatile, because they're not only buying it for $130 million, but they're also expecting other people in their social group, like their friends and people they talk to also then buy it in the future for them for a similar kind of value kind of thing too. And I feel that so for me, like the NFTs, those NFT arts, I thought at first was crazy. I didn't get it necessarily because Bitcoin is already providing you with a digitally scarce asset that you can put your money into, just like an NFT is, and it's a much broader market, much more liquid. You can get in and out of it so much easier, and the value is much more, in my mind, much more stable. People always talk about how volatile it is, but much more stable than an NFT market. But you know what? If these guys, are talking to their friends and they're doing it for publicity, and they're doing it because they have their network, and they're like, oh, my friends are going to buy this stuff as well, because that's how I kind of imagine it being, like a group of people that kind of know each other, the big boys club or whatever you want to call it, and they're like, they're like these.
Oh yeah, you paid $3 million, I'll pay $4 million. Who cares what it looks like? I'm just gonna know that I can, drop that amount of money, and that's how much clout I have in this arena here.
And, right. And if you buy one too, then you get a seat at that table too. Like those guys are hanging out, having coffee over there, or on a Zoom meeting, or whatever that other one is, the club meeting where you just kind of show up into Clubhouse. They're having a Clubhouse meeting. They're like, oh, that's the guy that has that NFT for whatever, Cyberpunk number 22 or something. Like let him in. He can afford that. So it is kind of like a ticket into like a social group or something. So I don't know. For me, it's a little bit crazy, obviously. But Bitcoin was crazy too for a lot of people when they first heard about it too. So I don't know. For me, I think it is about creating a different kind of culture or something. And in a way, like kind of like Christianity would be, or any group is, and then the crazier it is for outsiders, I think the stronger the group is in a way, kind of thing too. I think Christianity for an outsider sounds crazy, but you go to church and they're a pretty tight knit group, So here we have NFTs. They're crazy in a way. But I think it's a tight-knit group, and I think I appreciate that. I think the crypto community, I think we're all part of it, is like a newer group that's coming about. I don't want to say religion, because it's not, but I mean, there is some kind of like idea about believing in having faith in it. And I think NFTs are part of that, Bitcoin's part of that. And I think that's what I've kind of been trying to do with the art, is just kind of like add a little bit to that culture or community. And I'm just, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that at some point in time, the community develops into something that's more than just about Lambos and Moon, because that so far has been like the default kind of like kind of conversation. And that's how everybody gets into it at the beginning, but eventually you're hoping that it evolves into something else. There's a wonderful podcast on what Bitcoin did, and Eric Weinstein shows up, and he's an outsider. He's new to the party,
right?
And he's like, listen, like this crypto community is kind of really cool. Like it's a lot of younger people. They're technically savvy. Now they have financial clout. They have some kind of like economic muscle. He's like, what are we doing? Like, what is Bitcoin going to do to make the world a better place? Like a lot of times people say, oh, Bitcoin is going to make the world a better place. He's like, what are we doing? Like, let's do this. And the host, I don't know his name, I forget it, but he couldn't really answer him. And I think it was just like Eric Weinstein asking him over and over again, like, where's the revolution? And him not having an answer for it. It was kind of a painful interview, but funny in a way too, or awkward, I should say, interview. And I do hope that in a way, like maybe just conversations like these, the art in some ways, hopefully I can find something, but there's something where the conversation changes, or the conversation changes from when Moon, when Lambo, to, I don't know, something more important or more interesting.
Yeah.
Besides just a financial gain, because the financial gain is great too. Obviously, that's how we all got started. But eventually, like hopefully there can be other things. I think the NFT art is the start of something like that. I think, I mean, it's also for tax purposes. But there's like I said, there's a romantic part of me too that says when people are doing that, they're also looking for something of more substance. They're giving some kind of like value to the artist. I can't remember the name. Beeple. Yeah, Beeple is the main one, and I think in some way, like they're whoever's buying his stuff, they're saying like, oh, check out Beeple. He's like an interesting person. Maybe he has something to say beyond Lambo and Moon, and hopefully he does. Hopefully they can talk about something or bring something else to the space of this community where, I don't know, it does something more socially important than just become wealthy. That's my optimism. I don't know what it is or where it goes or how it works, but that's my hope. Because right now there are a lot of older people in politics controlling how everything works, and I think they're part of the problem, to be honest. So I think they're part of the main problem, to be honest, as far as how our society or culture is working right here in the United States. And so I'm very optimistic for the crypto community. Not very optimistic, but somewhat hopeful. You can't be too optimistic as you get older, you know what I'm saying? But I'm somewhat hopeful for the crypto community that might bring something more to the table as far as social change goes. But I don't know what that is yet.
And by the way, I think that was actually a great example you made, comparing the birth of the NFT market to Christianity. If you think, I guess if you think about the beginning of the Dark Ages, fall of the Roman Empire type of era, I believe the monasteries back then were selling something called indulgences. So a lot of the local townsfolk would essentially be paying tons of money to get a slip of paper representing their quote unquote seat in heaven. Now, granted, it's completely illusory, it's not tangible and whatnot, but for me, I'm thinking, is this the first parallel to maybe a NFT market or something like that? Or even like, I think the holy relics that purportedly existed, during that time as well. Food for thought, but I think you made a great comparison, to say the least. That's the light that flicked on in my head when you made that.
Yeah, I definitely think this crypto community has been around what, for 10 or 15 years or so, and it's really new, and it is economically important. I think there's people now have money, and that means influence in the United States or anywhere for that matter, And so I think, I feel like, I don't know, there's also part of me too that hopes that it becomes like a global community in a way too. And I feel that's really important for a lot of the problems of the 21st century, or at least issues that we're facing as far as people in the 21st century goes. There's issues of global warming and artificial intelligence, and those are all issues that do require a global community. So I am hoping in some ways that as the Bitcoin community kind of coalesces or forms, or crypto community forms, then maybe those same people can start.
My opinion is it is a global community right now, because you can trade in Bitcoin and a number of other currencies all over the world 24/7 in real time. And you can see that on fiatleak.com.
Okay, I'll check it out. I'll check out fiatleaked.com.
Yeah. And I know we had started the conversation with thinking differently and using Bitcoin as a unit of account and kind of changing your mind frame of what value is. And one thing, it's going to take some time to make that change from US dollars being the main unit of account to Bitcoin being the main unit of account. What people have to realize is that, the Bitcoin network is different than the Bitcoin currency. And the Bitcoin network has a great potential to be able to allow a multi-currency future while also promoting Bitcoin, the currency, as the ultimate store of value, because since it's using the network, people will start to see that this one currency is accruing all the value by everything and all the transaction fees going to it, and people using it as a store of value, and institutions picking it up, and nation states picking it up. Like you see the city of Miami looking to put it on your spreadsheet, and you'll start seeing countries like are starting to do that already as well. And with the Lightning Network kind of flanking from the lower part where you have the small transactions going on, and then you have the big transactions from institutions and nation state, it's kind of like the last people that are going to use it are, that your typical white guy that's making $100,000 a year in middle America, who it's going to blindside them because they're so comfortable with the way that they're living that they don't understand what's going on in Venezuela. They don't understand what's going on with the U.S. petrodollar and how it's breaking down, global and national relationships between these big countries. And, I was taking Anthony Pompliano's class, and he said, when it's really going to change is once we start pricing gas and petrodollar in Bitcoin, and groceries, and when the grocery store is finally like, listen, we're just going to start pricing it in Bitcoin because it's easier than doing the switch over every time that we get something in, because it makes more sense for us to just price it in Bitcoin. So that's going to be the main catalyst that kind of switches everybody's mind frame. Because if you go into a grocery store and now everything's priced in Bitcoin, and you go to the gas pump, and now everything's priced in Bitcoin, that's when the whole, by that point, everybody's pretty much gotten it, because the people that are making the decisions are going, hey, it's just so much easier to just price it in this rather than deal with all the transfer fees and everything to figure out how much it would have been in US dollars.
Yeah,
so I see that happening in 10 to 20 years, honestly. Like,
I'm gonna disagree with you, Chris, a little bit. And I like the sentiment, and I do feel like the long term, it does feel that like Bitcoin should succeed on that level. But I also do know that we're still on, I don't know what the system's even called, but we use inches over here, which is just ridiculous. It's 12 inches for a foot. And then if you're a scientist, every time you make a measurement, you have to convert it into the metric system. And people have been talking about changing that for 100 years. I don't know how long they've been talking about changing it, but it seems like an easy change. It seems like something that is a no-brainer. Of course we should switch to the metric system. Mm-hmm. And they even had for a while the cars with miles per hour and kilometers at the same time. And I don't know, I think people eventually have given up. So I think it's sometimes sometimes ideas do just hang in there for a long time. There's the idea of not just like looking at things right now and saying, oh, this is how it should be, but also respecting the historical context. And those ideas historically do kind of push through a lot of times, or carry on, I should say, not push through, but carry on. So I don't know how long or how long it takes before Bitcoin becomes so prevalent that people change their way of measuring value from dollars to Bitcoin. But yeah, the network is interesting. I think people like that's one of my favorite examples is now with the Jack Mayers,
Mahlers. Yeah,
Mahlers. Yeah, I never knew about the network and how it worked, but like once he set up a system where people in El Salvador, they don't need to know how Bitcoin works. They don't know anything about it. They just need to know, listen, I can change this right now, and here's the app. Download it. Now I can send money to my family, and it's going to cost me less. They don't need to know anything about it. They're just like, okay, great, I'm in, and let's do this. And they're going to be saving some money. So I think that's the kind of change on a institutional level that is necessary, and that's happening. But before people actually start changing like how they measure things from dollars to Bitcoin, I think that's going to be a lot harder to change than.
Yeah, I know. I agree too. I think it's going to be generational. That's why I say it's going to take 10 to 20 years, because as Generation Z grows up, it's already programmed into their brain. And then as younger generations grow into that, it's going to be second nature to them. And one thing, like if you look at Apple products, they have their own store and everything because they don't. And if you go into Best Buy or something, they have their own section because they don't want you to compare an Apple product next to a HP product because it's not as superior when it comes to power and storage and all of those things. It just looks nice and it's got a great user interface. Apple knows that. So what's going to start happening is you're going to start getting these smart wallets where you're going to have Bitcoin next to your US dollar. And once people start seeing their Bitcoin next to their US dollar and they're on the shelf next to each other in their wallet, they're going to start to see that one is more superior than the other. And things start slowly. It's everything is gradually then suddenly. Yeah. And I think that once, a lot of these smart wallets start getting downloaded over the next 5 to 10 years, and these banks start using these DeFi protocols because it's got a much better return. I think that, yes, we'll still have the dollars and we'll still have all these things, but just like email and the post office, because the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network is better, things will start getting priced in that. Like you look at luxury goods and things right now, and certain salaries for football players, they want to be paid in Bitcoin. And certain people are selling houses only in Bitcoin. And you start seeing it with the luxury goods first, and like with NFTs and stuff where there's those unique values. And then it starts trickling down into those everyday items where you can buy gift cards now in Bitcoin or regular USD, or you can buy stuff on Craigslist with Bitcoin or regular USD. And then it slowly starts to happen. I still think that they're going to be, your older gentlemen like my dad that's going to have the smart wallet, that's going to want to pay with the US dollar, even though the Bitcoin's there and it's the better option. I agree with you there, but I think it's just going to happen so fast that people aren't even going to realize because it's happening under the hood. Kind of like with Facebook. Nobody knows how Facebook works, but it is the ultimate tool of communication because nobody thought in 95 what you were going to have in terms of pictures and videos and connecting with friends from high school and all in one place. That wasn't communication back then. Communication back then was a rotary dial phone, and that the phone was your main communication until the internet came along and brought all of these other possibilities of communication. And I think that that's what Bitcoin and all these apps that are going to be on top of the Bitcoin network are going to do, is make it so easy and so friendly to use the Bitcoin network that people aren't going to even know they're using it. Just like they don't use like a grandma doesn't know they're using the internet when they're using Facebook. They just see a pretty screen that they're scrolling and they see their grandkids and they get to make comments. And I think that's where we're going. How long that takes, I don't know. But with how things work with technology, I just all of a sudden see it where one day everybody's got a cell phone all of a sudden, where nobody has a line anymore. I know that took some time, but then all of a sudden 1 year, maybe 5 years ago, everybody's like, oh, just cell phones only. Nobody's really using a landline anymore unless it's a business.
No, that's a good point with comparing them side by side. I'm just thinking of my wife too. I gave her $500 worth of Bitcoin a while ago. And then, she checks on it occasionally. and then she sees that its price is going up now. And then after a while, this has been like 2 years later, she's now started dollar cost averaging like $50 a week or 2 weeks, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, but it is there. It's not directly side by side. They're not in the same wallet, but it is on her phone. You know what I'm saying, where she checks for her account balance and then her Bitcoin balance. And so I do. That's a very good point about just comparing them side by side and eventually being like, oh, like, what am I doing over here with my dollars when I can put it over here in the Bitcoin, and that it is going up. I mean,
that's how I got into Bitcoin myself. 8 years ago, somebody gave me some.
Nice. Yep. Nice. Got to thank that person. You know what I'm saying? Thanks, bud, for that. Look out. Thanks for looking out for me.
Yeah. I meant to ask you earlier, you know, as much promise as NFTs have to offer, what drawbacks and what problems do you see NFTs presenting in the art world?
Yeah. I think the problem for me is that I feel like, I just feel that some investors or some people, I always feel like the little people are going to get screwed. I feel like I always just have this apprehension. I feel that like the bigger players, they've got their club, their social club, and I think they're going to be fine. The CryptoPunks, I'm assuming, are going to be worth $1 zillion until the end of time or whatever, maybe more. But then I feel like some people are going to want to jump in, and they're going to be like, oh, I can only afford this NFT over here. And I don't know what it is necessarily. It could be somebody else put together some cool NFTs, but it's not going to be a club that necessarily, I don't know, or maybe it is a club that everyone wants to be part of. I just feel like it's really volatile, and I don't know. I feel like Bitcoin's a safer investment as far as digital limiting factor, like a limited digital scarcity. That's the word I'm looking for. As far as digital scarcity goes. But whatever, you know what I'm saying? Maybe the price goes down a little bit and then you have a story to tell your friends about it. And then maybe it comes back after a while. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the biggest concern is. I just feel maybe some people get burnt a little bit as far as the money goes, investment goes. But I feel like NFTs are going to be around for a long time. I do feel like it is. At first I thought, oh, if you're betting, if you have like an NFT on Algorand or something, and Algorand goes bust after a certain point in time, it doesn't go bust, but just doesn't develop a big network, then you're out of luck. But the reality is you know, BitConnect is still around. You can still buy BitConnect for, I don't know what it is, a penny or something. Yeah. So like these things, they don't just disappear. And you know what, in a metaverse, there is interoperable. You can go cross platforms. So I feel like you're going to be fine. I think in a way that'd be my biggest concern, though, is just as far as an investment point of view, people losing money. Sometimes, you know, people are too early to the party. Sometimes they're too late. I don't know how it goes. I don't know. I don't really have any. I don't know. The
historical precedent is such that 3 years ago there were 1,000 different initial coin offerings.
Yeah.
NFT wasn't one of them, but of those 1,000 different ones, most of them are gone.
Yeah.
There's no money in them. They put money in them. Nothing ever happened to them. They just went out of business, stopped responding. They went offline. Most of them.
Yeah. I know. I went through that too. I'm assuming you guys have lived through that too, where you know there's a bunch of different ones. Everybody's hyping this one up, hyping that one up. And then just out of curiosity now with this recent run, you're like, oh, I'm curious how. I don't even know the names of them, but how that's doing. And then you check back, and you know, it's just like a little line that goes down and just kind of like flatlines for a long time. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, in theory, there could be some NFTs that do something like that, but the reality is, then you're still going to have it. You know, it's still going to be there, and if there is going to be you can tell your friends about it. It could be a story. I bought this NFT 15 years ago. Now it's worth nothing. Ha ha ha. But whatever. I don't know. Still, you got something out of it. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, and things are cyclical too. You know, it might be cool for 10, 20 years, then it might come back into fad 20 years from now, just like Pokemon cards did. Nobody thought that Pokemon cards would be worth so much, and here we are 20 years later, and people are paying $300,000 for a card. Yeah. So maybe 20 years from now, CryptoPunks will be the cool profile pick, and people will be paying $200 million for it for whatever silly reason, because it's a status symbol in certain arenas. But,
yeah, those garbage pail kids I threw away are worth like whatever. Yeah. I don't know what.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
All right. So
I wanted to ask you, Christian, before we go, I know you have an NFT art in the works right now, and I know a lot of the details are clandestine, so I'm not going to pry. However, as far as being on the lookout, when should we all expect something regarding this piece of artwork to come out? Because I would certainly like to let everybody know in my network as far as what you're working on, as do Chris and Randy as well. So if there's anything you can tell us or any little snippet you can leave us with what you're working on, what would that be?
Nice, thanks. I appreciate the question. You know what? I just moved and I'm in New York City, and New York City is like, it's actually comical, but you spend I'm spending all my time, my free time, just like working, doing housework around the house, trying to maximize space. Like, you guys don't appreciate it outside New York City, but like the space is crazy. And this is my little art now workroom now, which I'm very excited about. But I've been using it as like a workbench now to I don't know, to like all my tools come out of the closet every day and then they go back in. And so I actually, you see some of the artwork over there is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm planning on bringing that down once the tools go away for the most part, and I'm hoping I don't know, whatever, just work on stuff daily, and I think the idea, whatever, I can just share the idea. It's not that clandestine. I think the next thing I'm working on is a kind of like the buy Bitcoin thing, but it's going to be a big sundial from the Mayan Aztec calendar made out of currencies. And then I'm going to burn it and record it as a video format, and then put that as an NFT kind of thing. I don't know. So it's going to be made out of dollars and the US dollar, basically. Yeah, that's my main target in a way. And I'm going to put a quote there, something from I think the Jack Mallers had a quote where he referenced in his Bitcoin conference speech, which I love. Some part where it just talks about it's an official document from Costa Rica, where they're saying they propose, like, I don't think having our investments in US dollars a prudent move for us right now, which is true.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's about, like, for El Salvador, it's kind of a no-brainer for them to switch over, or at least try Bitcoin, because they're suffering, they're bearing the brunt of the burden from the US dollars whatever production, and they're getting no benefits. They're getting no stimulus checks, no nothing out of it. So they're just getting, they're taking all the downside and none of the upside. So for them, it's not as risky as it would be for somebody else to try to switch over to Bitcoin. So,
yeah.
Hopefully within a month or two. Hopefully within a month. I think things are wrapping up over here. I'm saying there's just some shelving left in the kitchen. and then I can focus on this again, and that's the game plan. So cool.
Awesome. I'll definitely be looking out for it, and when it does come out, I'll be sure to reshare and let everybody I know in my network know. I really enjoyed your art down at Bitcoin 2021 in Miami, and I am a fan. So I'm very much looking forward to whatever you'll be cranking out, working on, and releasing. And I just wanted to say, you've been an amazing guest, and thank you very much for coming on to our 7th episode on Friday the 13th.
Cool, thanks guys, appreciate it. Loved it. I feel like I learned a lot too, and I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for the warm words, and looking forward to talking to you guys again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep in contact and do this again in the future.
We will.
Cool. Thanks,
guys.
Thank you very much. All right, take care, everybody.
You guys.